Imagine paying $200,000 for a flower. Not a bouquet, not a garden, a single bulb, one tulip sitting in the palm of your hand. And the moment you paid for it, it was already worthless. This is not a metaphor. This is not fiction. This happened in 1637. In the most economically advanced nation on earth, an entire financial market built around flowers collapsed in a single day. Merchants lost their life savings. Noblemen lost their estates. Ordinary working people who had mortgaged their homes for a chance at fortune woke up with nothing. And the most disturbing part? Everyone saw it as perfectly rational, right up until the moment it wasn't. This is the story of Tulip Mania. And it is not just a story about flowers. It is a story about human nature, collective delusion, and what happens when an entire society agrees that something is worth more than it actually is. To understand how a flower broke a nation, you first have to understand the nation itself. In the early 1600s, the Dutch Republic was the wealthiest country in the world. Amsterdam was the financial capital of Europe. The Dutch had pioneered the modern stock market, invented the concept of publicly traded companies, and built a global trade empire that stretched from the Caribbean to the East Indies. The Dutch East India Company, the VOC, was adjusted for inflation, the most valuable corporation in human history, worth at its peak the equivalent of over $7 trillion today. The Dutch middle class was thriving. Merchants, craftsmen, skilled tradespeople, they had disposable income, they had ambition. And crucially, they had something that most of Europe did not yet have: financial instruments, futures, contracts, options, and the ability to buy something today and sell it tomorrow at a higher price without ever physically holding it. The Dutch had built the architecture of modern speculation. They just hadn't fully tested its limits yet. Into this world came the tulip. Tulips had arrived in Western Europe from the Ottoman Empire in the mid-1500s. They were exotic, brilliantly colored, unlike any flower native to the continent. By the early 1600s, they had become a status symbol among the wealthy. Owning rare tulips meant you were cultured, sophisticated, powerful. The most prized varieties, with their flame-like streaks of color, caused, ironically, by a virus, could take years to cultivate and were genuinely difficult to obtain. And when something desirable becomes scarce, prices rise. That part is simple economics. What happened next was not simple economics. Somewhere around 1634, the tulip market stopped being a market for flowers and became a market for speculation. The Dutch, experienced in financial instruments, began trading tulip bulb futures contracts, promising delivery of bulbs at a set price in the future. You didn't need to grow tulips. You didn't need to see them. You didn't even need to want them. You just needed to believe that someone else would pay more for them tomorrow than you paid today. And for a while, that belief was correct. Prices rose. Then they rose faster. A skilled craftsman in Holland earned roughly 300 guilders a year. By 1636, certain tulip bulbs were trading for 1,000 guilders. Then 2,000. Then more. The Semper Augustus, the most coveted tulip in existence, white petals slashed with crimson, sold for 10,000 guilders. That was enough to buy one of the finest townhouses on an Amsterdam canal, complete with a garden and a carriage. For a single bulb. The mania spread beyond the wealthy. Farmers sold land, families sold furniture, ordinary tradespeople, cobblers, weavers, carpenters, liquidated their savings to enter the market. Because every week, the prices went up. Every week, someone made a fortune. And when you watch your neighbor become wealthy for doing nothing but holding a flower, the fear of missing out becomes louder than the voice of reason. At the peak of the frenzy, tulip trading had moved into taverns. Contracts were written on scraps of paper. The market ran through the night. People were trading bulbs they had never seen for prices they could not rationally justify, in transactions built entirely on the assumption that the next buyer would be more irrational than the last. This is the moment every financial bubble reaches, the moment the asset no longer matters. What matters is the belief. February 3rd, 1637. The date is not confirmed with absolute precision. History does not always give us clean timestamps for disasters. But in early February of 1637, at a routine bulb auction in the city of Haarlem, something went wrong. The auctioneer called the opening price. He waited. No one bid. He called again. Silence. Or something worse than silence, hesitation. The kind of hesitation that travels through a room like a cold current. One buyer, uncertain, then another. Then the question no speculative bubble can survive. What if no one wants this tomorrow? The auction failed. Word spread. Within days, sellers flooded the market and buyers disappeared entirely. Prices did not decline, they evaporated. Bulbs that had sold for thousands of guilders could not find buyers at any price. Contracts written in taverns were worthless. The futures market, built on nothing but confidence, collapsed the moment that confidence cracked. In a matter of weeks, tulip prices fell by an estimated 99%. People who had borrowed against their homes to buy futures contracts could not repay their debts. The contracts themselves were largely unenforceable. Dutch courts, overwhelmed, eventually ruled that many of the tavern-signed futures could be voided for a fraction of their face value, which helped some people, but the wealth lost in the crash, the real wealth, the land sold, the savings liquidated, the livelihood surrendered that did not come back. The Dutch government tried to intervene. They attempted to reframe outstanding contracts as options rather than obligations, allowing buyers to walk away for a 10% penalty. It was too little, too late. The market was gone. Here is what makes Tulip Mania genuinely complicated, and why historians still debate its true scale. The Dutch economy did not collapse. The Republic did not fall. Amsterdam remained a financial powerhouse for decades after 1637. Some historians argue the broader economic damage has been overstated, that most of the trading happened among a relatively small class of speculators, and that the tulip market was never large enough to threaten the entire economy. But that framing misses something important. For the individuals who lost everything, the scale of the Dutch economy was irrelevant. For the craftsman who sold his tools, for the farmer who lost his land, for the merchant whose credit was destroyed overnight, the crash was total. And the psychological damage to Dutch financial culture was real. A generation of investors became cautious. The appetite for pure speculation cooled. The memory of the tulip stayed. And the tulip left something else behind. A template, a warning, a recurring story that capitalism would retell in different costumes for the next 4 centuries. The South Sea Bubble. The railroad mania of the 1840s. Dot-com stocks in 2000. Housing derivatives in 2008. Digital tokens with no underlying value in 2021. The costumes change. The structure never does. Here is what the tulip actually teaches us, and it is not what most people think. The common lesson drawn from Tulip Mania is: don't be irrational. Don't buy something you can't value. Don't follow the crowd. But that lesson lets us off too easily. Because the people buying tulips in 1636 were not stupid. Many of them were experienced merchants, sophisticated traders, people who understood markets better than almost anyone alive at the time. They were not irrational. They were rational actors inside an irrational system. Each individual decision, buy now, prices are rising, everyone else is buying, made sense given the information and incentives in front of them. The irrationality was collective, structural, baked into the market itself. This is the real lesson of 1637. Markets are not just mechanisms for pricing things correctly. They are systems for amplifying human emotion, greed, fear, hope, panic, until the emotion itself becomes the price. The tulip was never worth 10,000 guilders, but for a brief, extraordinary moment, enough people believed it was. And in that gap, between belief and reality, fortunes were made, fortunes were destroyed, and a single afternoon in Haarlem echoed across 4 centuries of financial history. The flower faded, the lesson never did.